How's everybody? Before I flip it over to you guys for questions, I want to start out by saying how excited we are to be able to announce Tamba Hali as the newest member of the Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Fame. Obviously a player who made a huge impact on the field, but also somebody who's done a lot in the community, both while he was playing and more recently as an ambassador. He's one of the all-time leaders in franchise history in many, many categories. Somebody who has stayed involved with the organization in terms of mentoring our young pass rushers, which was a trait that he had during his playing days. He was always trying to help his teammates be better. Really special person with an amazing story coming from Liberia, and we're delighted to be able to honor him today and throughout the season. With that, I will turn it over.
Sorry. What did you learn from the stadium vote, and how does it inform how you look at things going forward? I realize that's a in-depth point, but can you assess that or summarize it?
Yeah, well, we're definitely disappointed with how the stadium vote turned out. It was something that we had worked on for several years, and we were excited about the opportunity to be able to renovate GEHA Field at Arrowhead, and unfortunately, it just didn't pass. I've been through a few of these processes, and I know from that experience that what you try first doesn't always succeed. So we'll be in a situation where we go back to the drawing board. We will look at all of our options going forward, which is something that we mentioned before the vote. So that'll be our focus.
When you say that, can you also just elaborate on what you think you learned from the voting itself? I mean, from the people of Jackson County, how they voted, what you think that statement was?
Well, obviously they were not in favor of the proposal. In terms of dissecting it into why and which voters had a different perspective, I'm not sure we've had the time to go that deep. So that's something that we'll look at in the coming months.
Clark, is it still a priority to be at Arrowhead Stadium?
When we started on this process 3 years ago, it felt like we had a very long time, a long runway with about 9.5 years left on our lease. We're now down to 6.5. And so I do feel very much of a sense of urgency, and we will approach it from a broader perspective going forward, because time is short for us at this point, and so we need to see what other options are out there for us.
I know it may be too early to answer this, but do you foresee separating from the Royals and whatever you do going forward?
So John Sherman and I had a conversation following the vote, and he let me know that they were going to be working on other options as well. And I really think at this point it makes sense for both of us to work independently. There's certainly nothing to preclude us coming back and doing something together, but he also feels the sense of urgency, and I know he's eager to try to find a long-term solution, which we are as well.
Clark, why do you see that it makes sense for each team, or at least in this case the Chiefs, to work independently rather than with the Royals?
Well, the fact that we've been here together for over 50 years at the sports complex, I think, was really the reason that we were working together. We also currently have an existing sales tax that was voted in some 17 or 18 years ago that supports both stadiums. The Royals are going to be looking at options that may not include the sports complex, and we'll be doing the same thing. So I really think at this point it makes sense for us to go our separate ways.
Clark, you said obviously 6.5 years obviously leads to some level of urgency. What's the most ideal time to have some sort of conclusion or what the next step is?
Well, stadium development projects just take a long time, and I don't want to put a specific number on it. But with only 6.5 years left on the lease, we're going to have to work very hard over the next year, year and a half, to see if we can find an option.
Clark, with the stadium proposal that you had out there and then design, have you guys kind of go back to the drawing board in terms of how you designed it, what you wanted to see at the Arrowhead? Or are you just trying to reimagine something differently now that you know that maybe you had time to assess the original concept?
We've really not had time to reflect on that. If we end up back focused on a renovation of Arrowhead, we'll obviously look at everything that we did from a design standpoint over the last couple of years to see if it can be enhanced. But we may be in a situation where we're looking at a new stadium as well.
But Arrowhead is one of, if you open it up to more options, Arrowhead is one of those options, though.
It definitely is, yes.
We obviously know your family tie to Arrowhead Stadium, what you said is your dad's favorite place on earth. How much of a factor will that play, knowing that you may have to look at other options?
I really can't speculate on how any of that's going to turn out. Arrowhead is a special place for our family and our fan base. That was one of the reasons that we focused on it with the last effort, but going forward, it may make more sense for us to be in a new stadium.
Have you had any conversations with any Kansas officials, whether it be the governor or other state officials over there?
We have not. We've been pretty focused the last 3 weeks on the draft, but we know we need to turn our attention back to the stadium front here in the coming months.
Clark, you extended Andy. Can you speak through that process going to him and the significance of that?
Yeah, well, delighted to be able to announce that we extended not only Andy, but Brett Veach and Mark Donovan as well. The three of them have done a tremendous job leading the organization during their tenure with us. The three of them work extremely well together, and the success that we've had on the field and off is a credit to them. Obviously delighted to have all of them on board for a number of years. I talked a little bit about it before the Super Bowl when people were asking questions about how long Andy was going to go and speculating that he might be ready to retire. I just didn't have that sense. I think he's really enjoying what he's doing, and with good reason. And I was glad to be able to confirm that he wants to keep doing it as long as his health will allow it.
How long do you see that being?
It's impossible to look into the future and say that. I think he wants to coach as long as he feels like he can do the kind of job that he's done for us over the last 5 or 6 years.
Brett has been a big part of that. How have you seen him maybe change over the years from like that 17-18 window when you first started to where he's at now?
Yeah, well, he's definitely matured a lot in the role. He was somebody who really came up in the business underneath Andy. And I would say he's much more independent in his thinking at this standpoint. This weekend's probably the best example of that. The draft is his process, his and his staff's process. And certainly there's a collaboration that happens between the general manager and the head coach, but Brett's the guy that's running the show, and I think doing a great job at it.
Earlier this month, you obviously had the incident with Rasheed in Dallas. Kind of a two-part question. One, how comfortable are you as far as his status on the team with the investigation as it's going on? And secondly, did that cause you any pause or conversations with Brett as far as this draft goes about players that you might select or might not select based on any off-the-field questions and concerns?
So I'll answer those in reverse order. I think Brett and his team do a really good job in evaluating the character of the individuals that we draft. Occasionally, guys make mistakes and get in trouble. And certainly, I'm very disappointed with the situation with Rasheed and how that's unfolded. It is an active legal case, so I can't really comment on it further than that. He is still a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think Andy mentioned that we'll just evaluate that as we go forward.
Clark, when it comes to just meeting the couple guys that have been drafted so far, at least from Thursday and Friday, I'm sure you met Xavier since he's out there reactions to meeting them and how you feel they fit in the team?
Yeah, at this point, the only one that I've met is Xavier, but I've talked to all four of them, and all four of them are really excited to be part of the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, the three guys on the offensive side of the ball, one of the things that they always mention first is the opportunity to play with Patrick and how excited they are about that. And they obviously know about Andy Reid's history as one of the greatest innovators offensively in the National Football League. So I think there's a lot of excitement in coming to the Chiefs. And, you know, being back-to-back Super Bowl winners doesn't hurt as well. It's a pretty special opportunity for those young men.
Clark, given the history of Arrowhead, were there certain just physical restrictions you guys could do in your bid to renovate the building that if you were in, you know, if you obviously plan to build a new building, you would have maybe more different expansive amenities for fans? I feel like you guys were restricted.
You definitely have limitations when you renovate any building. You can't approach it from the same standpoint as if you were building new. It's just not possible. Fortunately, when Arrowhead was built back in the late 60s and early 70s, the design allowed us to do a lot of things, some of which we did 15 years ago when we did that renovation to sort of bring the building into the 21st century. And our approach with it was to continue to do some more things that would make it more like a modern building. But they definitely are different. So I don't want to suggest that they're the same. Probably the best example in the league would be Lambeau Field, which has been renovated multiple times, and they've done a lot of great things with it. Is it like a brand new stadium? No, but it's also special in its own right.
And given the potential of maybe building a new stadium, whether it's in Missouri or Kansas, is there, after the vote, having a few weeks' time, is there more appeal from your standpoint on what could be possible if building new is a logical conclusion?
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything's changed in the last 2 or 3 weeks. We were obviously very focused on Arrowhead, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a special place for our fan base, and I believe it could be a special place for our fan base for another 25 years with the right renovation. But we're just going to have to be open-minded in how we approach this, and that may involve a new stadium, and it could be an open-air stadium or it could be a dome stadium.
The last of I, go ahead, Vi.
Clark, between the clock ticking on the lease, 6.5 years, and World Cup preparations, renovations, and what to do before and after, I wonder how all that speaks to a timeline you might have in mind for trying to formalize what you're going to do.
Yeah, just going back to the comment I made earlier about having learned a lot from being through a few stadium processes over time. They're really hard things to put deadlines on, and I think it would be a mistake to do that because we invariably would probably miss a deadline. We just need to work as quickly as possible. And you know that's not something that happens in weeks. It's months and years to find the right solution. Your lead-in about the World Cup, I think, is pertinent as well because we do have a lot of work that we have to get done over the next 2 years to make sure that we can host the games and really make sure that Kansas City is regarded as one of the best World Cup sites when the tournament comes to the U.S. in 2026. So we have a lot to work on and think about there, and that process is already underway. We've started the renovations for the World Cup.
Thanks, Clark.
Thank you, Clark.
Thank you.